Hello, I'm Eric. I am an Angular developer. I have been for 7-ish years, professionally for 5 or 6 years. Um, and this is going to be a live coding video. I have done some thinking about what to do, but I have not actually written any code yet. That's going to all happen live. Um, and today I am wanting to work on a little idea I had for some test helpers that are going to allow me and anyone who wants to do some testing of their of any asynchronous function with a format similar to Angular's HTTP testing framework, the HTTP testing controller. In fact, to start with, let me just pull that up for reference. HTTP testing controller. And in the end, we want to make an API kind of similar to this one. And I have sketched out what that may look like. Um, came up with maybe this name Async Testing Controller, so it's for testing any async API. For example, navigator.clipboard. If you're not familiar with that, that's built into the browsers nowadays to read and write text from the user's clipboard. And it's promise-based, asynchronous, and there's a couple of these functions or methods, read text and write text for reading and writing from and to the clipboard. Um, it could have that same expect none. We could have a dot match similar to this dot match. Um, expect one, similar again. Um, and then return an object on which you can call, where is it, flush or error, and then verify at the end of your test to show that there were no unexpected or, yeah, literally unexpected calls to the API. Now, I've done some thinking about this already, and I want to start with a smaller thing upon which we could build this whole controller object. And then I don't really even know if I'm gonna end up wanting to go any further, or maybe this smaller idea is better for just one function, to wrap one function and give some part of this API already. I'll make this, return a test call, but not have the controller part yet. And then the controller can sort of wrap that and add multiple, one each of the thing we write today for each method you pass in like this. So let's see, bring up the code here. This is going to be in my open source libraries. I have a suite of open source libraries. It's on GitHub, it's on NPM. Here I've got them all in a monorepo. I recently migrated them all to a monorepo. They were each in their own individual one. And I've been really happy with that decision. It just reduces overhead for me to have them all in one place. Then when I upgrade Angular, I only have to go through that process. It's a little bit longer than doing just one repo, but it's a lot shorter than doing, whatever this is, 6 repos or something. Um, and so it's arranged by the dependencies that you need for, let's see, so like AppState, JSCore, and Microdash are all, they're just plain JavaScript libraries, no RxJS, no Angular. Some of them depend on others, but other than that, no dependencies. And then if you're using RxJS, then you could add this library to it, which depends on some of the ones that I just mentioned, and RxJS, and gives you utilities to work with RxJS, Angular, and since what we're talking about now is specifically for testing, and is specifically for testing in a pattern similar to Angular, I'm thinking it belongs here in ngDev. This one is for, let me just pull up the descriptions here. Let's go to slibs. This is the main one. So miscellaneous utilities to use while developing Angular apps. So this wouldn't be something you deploy with your Angular app. It'd be something you only use during development, such as testing. Yeah, it's going to be using Jasmine and everything, so it's going to definitely be relegated only to tests. So it definitely belongs here, something that you don't deploy with your app. So ngdev spies, maybe it belongs in the spy areas. We're going to use Jasmine spies to intercept the calls to the asynchronous method, and so yeah, spies seems like a good place to do it. I think I'll write this with a TDD style, test-driven development. Often I don't do that, but in this case, I want to. Often, if I'm developing a UI, I want to just play with the UI first and see it on the page before I worry about tests, because I'm going to fiddle with things. But in this case, the API is not a user interface. The interface is not a user interface. It's an API, abstract programming interface. And so I want to use the interface to get it set up the way I want. Might as well use it in a test, since that's what it's designed for anyway, and I can use it while writing the tests for the function itself. So let's see. First, we need a name for this thing. Let's call it, let's go look at our design here and see if there's any inspiration. So it's going to be the something powering, it's going to be behind this call. When you create one of these controllers, that's when it would do the stubbing. So it's going to be a type of stub, an async stub, async testing controller. So it's going to be like the controller for just one method in an object. Yeah, and it's going to return one of these test call objects. That's going to be fully implemented in this lesser version. So we call it an async testing stub. Async testing, yeah, let's just start with that. You can always rename it later once we've played around and maybe inspiration strikes from the actual usage of it. So async testing, testing stub is kind of redundant. Let's just call it async stub for now. I feel like that's going to need to change. Testing async stub.spec. Here will be a spec for it. And yeah, the name, this is funny. The implementation and the test, I'm going back and forth which I want to do first, because one's going to help me with the name better, but the other's going to help me with the API better. So let's say stub async method. Let's start with that. Rename stub async method spec. Stub async method. Okay. Don't need any of that. That's for something built on a much more framework stuff here. And we'll say it does what? Oh, it. We want to have a call like stub async method navigator write read text, and that's going to return an async stub. Okay. And then from here, we're going to want to be able to have the power to match them. Yeah, have the power to match and expect them and return one of these things. So matching would be if we've called this multiple times, we're going to find the one which actually fits whatever criteria the user wants. They're going to pass in a callback similar to this match here, where you pass in a callback. I don't think I'm going to deal with this sort of request match object. Maybe I should look that up just to make sure it doesn't have anything that looks really useful. I have a feeling that's going to be something built on top of all the others. Yeah, method and URL, not interesting for a function call which has neither of those. We don't know any pattern. Like when you're stubbing out an HTTP call, you know a bunch of things it's going to have: a URL, body, headers, method, and so there's a lot more sort of framework level um, um, helpers you can use. But for us, it's going to be any old asynchronous function. We have no idea what sorts of values the user might be passing into it, so we can't help users with those kind of tricks. So this match string would be useful in the full-blown API where we're stubbing out multiple methods, so we could pass in a string for which method. Maybe if we decide to go that far and that's useful, but for today, I think it's just going to be this one. And match really is powers expect one. Like expect one is going to do a match behind the scenes and then do more on top of it. So match seems like a good place to start. Do I want to copy any of this? It's just a predicate, a function that returns a Boolean and receives the request. So here I'm expecting it to receive the call. Yeah, let me just copy this. So it finds matching method calls. And so we're going to do async stub.match and pass it. Let's see, this isn't useful. We just pass it true. And what does, so we're going to expect this to have not found anything yet because we haven't made any calls to it, right? And then later, and I'll break this up into multiple tests in a minute, but later we can do navigator.read text, and then we would do an async stub.match. Well, if we just do the same thing, then we're going to expect that to get a value in the response. So let's find, get my keyboard shortcuts right. Let's find out better what the API should look like. Similar to Angular, it should return an array of something, an array of test calls, I will call them. All right, fair enough. So we're going to expect that array to equal an empty array. That's going to be my first really simple test. Let's break this down into, let's describe a .match function. And we'll make something like it. I'm questioning right now whether I want to make this a test all on its own, or maybe make a few calls and see how they change after you've made some calls. Maybe I like that better. So let's use this similar test in here, and we're going to expect this to equal, I don't know, some test call, and we'll have to come back later to fill in exactly what that's going to look like and how to test that equality. Okay, great. Let's just get this much of it working. So test-driven development, you can make a real simple little test, get it working, and then as you add more complexity to what you're writing, you do the test first for that new case, that new thing you want it to do, go back to the code and make it do that without breaking any of the other tests that you already wrote and have passing. So let's see, let me just spin up a test server. This is ngdev test server. Start getting that ready for us. And we want to export a new function called stub async method. It's going to take in, ooh, the typing of this will be interesting. It's going to take in some sort of object, we'll say t, and then a method name, which is going to be a key of t, but we're going to make this fancier, this typing fancier later, because I think we can probably restrict this somehow so that the key that you pass in has to be a function that returns a promise, because that's, it has to be an async method that we're studying, right? So I'm going to write a note for that. Make typing fancier to require method name to be for an async method. Okay. So what do we want this to do? We want this to return something that has a match function. Interesting. So this is going to return, and in the final API, that's going to be a thing that can then be used later to return test calls. Okay. So what do we call this new thing that we're returning? This is a stubbed, an async method controller. What did I call this one? Async testing controller versus an async method controller. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And I wonder if we should just make this thing a class instead of a function, right? So that's what the HTTP testing controller is. It's a class. You don't call a function to return an object. You just call new. And so if that's what our API is going to be for the controller itself, maybe we stick with the pattern and use the same technique for just the single method controller. So let's rename it again. Let's make this now. Can RubyMine, or sorry, RubyMine. I work with Ruby at work. This is WebStorm, which is the JetBrains IDE that doesn't do Ruby. It only does the JavaScript stuff. If I rename this here, which is going to be async method controller, will it rename the file? Yes. Okay. Didn't get that one for me, but method controller. Now I'll turn this into a class because I got the rename with me. Now let's see, we still want the T. Interesting, I'm getting ideas. And then the constructor is going to be something like this. And we don't need a return type on a constructor. Okay, now the T, right, let's make this extend okay, so what we have here, we're going to have T be the type of the method. And so the method needs to be some function that returns a promise. And when the user creates one of these, we're hoping that it's going to infer T. Still going to have to revisit this and make sure that this has a real nice developer experience for, when we call the constructor and pass in the two arguments, that it can infer this T correctly. but this will be a start. So put some effort into the developer experience to infer T. Okay. So T is now an object. Ooh, can I put it like a K there? I want an object where, you know, K is going to be one of these T's. And the method name is going to be K. Very interesting. Looks like I can't put a K there, which I was thinking, yeah, type parameters cannot appear on a constructor, which I was kind of expecting. Yeah, I'm kind of going back and forth on how to accomplish this. And I could just put any there for now to get my, to go back to making progress on this, what I said I was going to do as test-driven development. Okay, let's go back to that. I'm going to copy this for future reference in case I want it. But we're just going to go back to using T like that. This is going to be key of T again. And we will get typing figured out better later. So all I really need right now is to have a match function. New async method controller. Read text. It's going to be navigator.clipboard is what we're stubbing. Okay, which has a read text method. So the typing already helped me there. And now we need this match function. So let's go ahead and create that. The param, let's see, that's going to be, what is this called in the Angular API? It's called, let's go to their source code, I guess, to see what it's called. Oops, that wasn't the right button. That's the button I wanted. It's called just match. Okay, fair enough. A method called match which takes a parameter called match. Now those are two very different things with the same name, which I always tell my team at work is not allowed. But if our goal here is to mimic the Angular API, I guess we'll follow their standards instead of the ones that I normally use. So we'll make a function called match, which takes what as a parameter? It takes the call. One of these guys. Call info should be from Jasmine. Yes, good and great, except that's not the kind of import I want, so it looks like I should probably just call this a jasmine.callinfo. And let's see, if we go to I gotta find the typing I pass in here. Oh, we know this is right. Call info will say of unknown for now. Or maybe we won't. Does not satisfy the constraint func. Oh my gosh. We'll just say function for now. And still doesn't satisfy the constraint func. What is the constraint func? Okay. We'll do just that for now and come back to it later. Because eventually we want this to match the actual function you're stubbing. So I'll just leave another to do there. Match the type of the method. And this is going to return an array of something, and we'll fill all that in as we actually get back into the TDD world. So for now, to satisfy my test I wrote, put underscores there. That's a little trick. TypeScript, I turn on all the strict flags of TypeScript so that it always gives me as much help as TypeScript can possibly give me. I definitely prefer that. And so one of those is, hey, you have a parameter there that you never use. That can't be right, can it? And then you can tell TypeScript, you know what, just ignore that. I know what I'm doing. It's sort of like an exclamation point for or a casting to tell the compiler not to worry about it. I'll take it from here. I'm not going to leave it like that. I do plan to use this, but that's just going to fix my errors temporarily. Okay, so that should have fixed all of my errors, and this test I'm expecting to actually pass right now. Let me pull up the testing. And we only really need to be running the tests for, why don't I see it? Maybe I need to change this. This is the test for the async method controller. Let me just copy that, come back to my tests. I really only want to run those specs. No spec found. Async method controller. Why not? Async method controller. Async method controller. This is another great reason to get things running early and keep checking your tests, keep checking your code, every little piece that you write, every little piece of progress you make towards your end goal. Otherwise, you're going to get to the end, and you're going to have 1,000 little problems like this, and you're not going to, it's not going to be as obvious where the problem could have happened. So what's going on? The first thing I want to do in Angular, actually, I don't think it's Angular's fault. I think it's probably Karma's fault or something. If you have an error in one test, in one file, and you are modifying multiple files, the recompile, the file watching recompile logic in, I suppose probably it's Karma, can miss changes. If you have an error in this file and you make changes in this file, and then you come back and fix the error in this file, it won't pick up the changes in this file. I don't know when that started or when they're going to fix that. It's really annoying. I hope there's an open bug for it. I haven't even searched for it, which is, I suppose, kind of irresponsible of me. I should be a better member of the community and report that, or go put a little thumbs up emoji on the existing issue that hopefully is already there. But not in the middle of this video. So let's see if that fixed it for us. No, that was not the problem. No spec found with method name async method controller. I copy pasted this. Let's see. I'm in ngdev and I'm running the tests for ngdev. What could be the issue? Let me just copy paste this again to make sure somehow that's not what got messed up. Let's see, port 9876. This is running on port 9877. I have, maybe on another desktop, I have another instance of Karma running. And so this took a different port. Okay. Well, I will just leave that alone. For now, you don't have to watch me go hunt for what else might be running on my computer. There we go. In business. Great, and it passed as we expected. Now, navigator.clipboard.read text, and now we expect this array to actually have something in it. And that thing should be a test call. object. So maybe that's all we want to test next. Expect length to be 1, and let's extract this out. This is going to be, I don't know, matches, and then we want matches 0 to be, now there's some like Jasmine dot object of type test match. They have something like that. Instance of? No. Let's go see if we can find our Jasmine docs and Jasmine async matchers. Those sound fun. Matchers? Right, it's not a matcher that we want. That's the name of the thing you put after the expect. This is something you pass into one of these. Google's probably going to be faster. Jasmine expect object of type. Testing for instance of using Jasmine. Oh, it is in matcher. To be instance of. Okay, there we go. And do I like this? I'm new. One has a library. How can I test this? Sure. I know I want to upvote this guy. That was really helpful. That's exactly what I wanted. I was remembering, but not fully. Okay. I sometimes write questions and answers on Stack Overflow, and I always appreciate those upvotes. It makes me feel loved or appreciated or valued or respected or something. So I try and return that favor and upvote other people's stuff when I find them helpful. Okay, to be instance of test call. So we have to make one of those, and we have to make our function, our controller, return it. Now, good standards normally dictate that this new class should be in a new file. So I guess I can do that, and that will allow us to write our tests for this class in a separate place too, and it just keeps things smaller, easier to digest, separation of concerns, that sort of thing. So let's make a test call class, and we are going to want to make a test call spec. Oops. When we'll put for now just a single test in there. This simply fails, and this is going to remind us that we have to go write some tests for this guy. Great, that should be enough to satisfy my test. I just need this now to return it. Let's get our test call over here so we can sort of see both. Actually, let's put our tests over here and our production code over here. Controller will go general to the things that it uses, general to the things that it uses. I'm going to leave these two up here because I think we're going to want them by the end of this video. And so I looked them up ahead of time and got them ready. Just open the files, that's all. Great. So now we can import our test call. That's one step. And now we need this to actually keep track of the calls to the method and return a test call object for each one. Whew, that's a lot more functionality all at once. So first thing we're going to need to do is in the constructor we want to stub the method in order to intercept these calls and keep track of them. So let's start by just doing Jasmine's spy on obj, pass the method name. Oh, what don't you like about that? Key of t is not assignable to t key if t extends function. Ah, so maybe they're going to give us some of the fancy typing for us. So if we take this as the arguments, then we can use k. Oh, it still doesn't like it. Okay, fancy. Wild. I'm still going to go put more thought and effort into that later. I understand the gist of how that's working, but I'm going to want to really think about that and make sure it's going to work really well for our use case. But we will get to that later. So that allows us to spy on it. Now we need to keep track of that. So let's make a private. Oh, let's use our new ES20. I don't remember which version of JavaScript now has built-in not TypeScript private fields, but actual JavaScript private fields, which have some benefits. It's not just compile time; it's actually runtime private fields. It gives us better, even stronger typing guarantees, or in this case, not typing, but like scope, limiting our scope guarantees. Hopefully, you know what I mean. Those aren't the right words. So let's make a private variable, instance variable called just the spy. And that is going to be whatever this returns. Oh, yeah. One of those? No, that's too complicated. What is a jasmine.spy, right? Jasmine.spy. I think maybe it's already time to get into how to make this typing a little better, because I don't want to copy all of this just to declare the type of my spy. Eventually I'm going to have to put in the effort to understand this typing and get it working the way I want. And so I might as well do that now before I just make a mess of things with all this junk. So we want, let's call it M for the method. Let's call this O. It's going to be the type of the object, the type of the key, and then M can be the type of the method. Maybe we'll see if that works for us. So the method name has to be a k such that O of k extends function. And actually for us, we need to extend a function that returns a promise, one of these guys. Let me just make that a type, a named type to use. Async func equals this guy. Oh, and that's an any array. So this is actually going to extend to async func for us. And then, oh, that's going to give us problems with the spy on. In these libraries, I find myself like casting to any at times where I never would in like an actual app. But these small little library things, sometimes I'm trying to be really fancy with typing to benefit the users of the library, and maybe within the function then I give up some of my type safety, like here. I may or may not. I may be, basically all I'm saying is I may be comfortable doing like this. um, I'm not going to yet. Don't know if it's needed. Maybe by the time we're done, all of this is going to all just work out nicely. But so the method name then is going to be O of k, right? Not the name, the method itself. The name is the k. I guess if I'm calling it name instead of key, I should name this n. Sometimes I actually spell out longer type names, which probably would be smarter, but for some reason I'm in the habit of these one-letter type names for generics like this. What if we do this in the reverse order? What if we make n extend property type, which just means it's something that can be used as the key of an object. It's a property of an object. Is built into TypeScript. No, it's not. Property key is. Sorry. Built into TypeScript, it's just string symbol or number. So the name has to extend property key. Then O extends an object where k and n is an async function. Let's try that. And I have some sort of syntax error. Oh no, all type parameters are unused. Yeah, okay, we'll get to that. So what is the deal? I've got some syntax error here. Nope. Okay, that fixes the syntax errors. So there's some syntax error in here. Ah, extends. Ooh. Okay. So method name is now n. And here, do we get autocomplete? No. But we do get at least errors until we get a valid name there. So that's something. We'll come again, we'll put more effort into this later, but that's a start. We are just going to do this as any for now, as I said. Oops. And now whenever someone calls our method, we have a spy all set up for it. It should be in there. So now let's return this dot spy. Oh my. I'll get it one of these days. Spy. Map that to a new test call. Let's see, spy.calls, I think it is. Does that have a map? No. Calls dot. There's something that gives us an array. We have to do, what is this? Is this an iterator? How do we turn this into an array? I want this to be an array. First, all, read-only array, okay. Calls.all.map. Still we can't map. Ah, it's a function. Okay. And this dot spy is one of those. Oh boy. Typing. Always with the typing. Hopefully, by the time we put in this effort, we can get rid of all this casting. That would be great. I would love to be able to use TypeScript even when I'm developing this library. But if I have to choose, I'd rather make even better typing for my users and just make sure I use a lot of really good testing here to cover my own needs within the library. All right, so let's see how we're doing with our test. Lovely. Now, that wasn't quite red-green refactor. If you're not familiar, you should write the test expectation, then run the test and see that it fails, and then come back, fix it, and see that it passes. Because then you're testing both the product. The first, when you see that it's red, you're testing that the test itself that you wrote is actually doing something, right? Like, it's not that I made some mistake and this expectation just always passes and there's no way I could ever catch a real problem with it. So I'm going to go back and simulate that by going back to the code I had before. Now I have to, okay, hold on. Let me just comment out everything. Oh, man, should have run that earlier. Okay, now we should see that our test fails. Expecting the length of that array to be 1. Ha! Chrome is prompting me because I asked to use the clipboard, because I actually called that clipboard without having it stubbed. And so it's actually going through to the browser's clipboard thing. Expected that length 0 to be 1. Expected undefined to be an instance of test call. Perfect. That's exactly the kind of failure we expected. Let's put back all of the code we wrote. And try again. Beautiful. So, .match finds the matching method calls. I guess I would like a test here that's going to be, there's this difference between match and expect one where this sort of removes it. Once you expect it, it's no longer going to be in the matches anymore. And so thinking ahead to that, I think maybe I'd like a test now to say that that it can match them multiple times in a row. And I suppose, right, and we're not doing any actual matching yet either. Interesting. So let me just start writing a little bit of test outline here. So we want to say that it does not remove the matching calls from future reference, future calls from future matching. And we have it finds, let's do one for it finds the matching method call. It finds, okay, yeah. Let's make a special case just for this one. We'll make a couple of calls with different arguments and make a function to be able to actually give us a good predicate matching test. Great. So it returns an empty array when there have been no calls. It finds matching method calls and it returns an empty array. Or it's not really that it returns an empty array. I want to do a test for when you pass it a predicate that has no matches. And it's not really the empty array part that I'm interested in. That's not why I want to write that test. I want to write that test because I want to make sure I'm covering an edge case where it doesn't fail. It doesn't throw an error or something. So it can gracefully handle when no calls match. Okay, so let's start filling some of these in. returns an empty array when there have been no method calls. We already have this test. It's here. Beautiful. And that means we don't need that part anymore. When I call it breaking my test up into paragraphs, putting in these blank lines. I have a couple of rules, guidelines I like to follow. They don't always work. Sometimes tests are more complicated, but for some simpler tests, there's a couple of patterns I like to follow. The first and simplest one is breaking up the setup from exercising the code. So paragraph 1, setup. Paragraph 2, exercise the code. Paragraph 3, expectations. And so that's what I've got here. Setting everything up. Then I'm going to exercise the code. I'm actually calling match. And then my expectations. Is this maybe part of exercising the code, or is that setup? I'm going to call that setup. Special case when there's only at most one line for each paragraph, then I just won't add any new lines. It's my own personal thing. And then let's see, gracefully handle when no calls match. That's going to be very similar to this. But we're going to just have the predicate return false, and then we should expect this. So, good points. Don't really need, well, I like that breakdown of those 3 categories I just told you, so I'm going to stick with that. So we're going to expect matches to be an empty array. Maybe I'll even do that same thing here, just to keep everything nice and consistent. It's only one line per, so no need for the paragraph breaks there. All right, so we've got what should now be, I think, 3 working tests. We're going to need to make this one fancier to actually, do some work in that predicate matching. Ooh, messed something up when shuffling those around. Can gracefully handle when no calls match. Ah, fantastic. Predicate matching already kicking in. Perfect. So now this is going to be red-green refactor for us. I didn't even realize we had it yet. So we got the red. Now we have to make it actually respect the return value of this predicate we pass in. This match function, which means I'm going to use it. And so I want to first filter this guy by, now, well, we won't worry about the argument to it yet. We will just do filter that by match. Perfect. Bam. Red, green. And then the refactor, I don't think there's anything for us to refactor here. It's looking good. Let's turn something else red. Or, yeah. Let's actually, oh, I don't know if it'll be red. Let's do some work here. Now, read text doesn't give us any arguments. We don't pass it any arguments. So let's switch this one to write text, where we can pass in the data and use that in our predicate to match the call with that particular argument. Okay, so we are going to do write text. Oops. So there's our stub. It is a method controller. We want to match. Okay, so let's call write text, and let's write in value 1, 2, and 3. And then here we can match. Now let's see, we want this to be a call. And I'm expecting to use to pass in the full call object from Jasmine so that whatever Jasmine gives us as terms of information about that call, we can use, the final user of this library, can use in their, ideas are firing, in their predicate. The idea was, oh, remember back when I was saying that in HTTP you have body and headers and this and that? Well, and we don't have any of that for a method call. Well, we do. We have arguments, right? So this call contains information about more than just arguments. Maybe we should inspect that and see if there's anything else useful that the user might care to match on. And if so, we can give them the call object, and then maybe a future improvement could be some shortcut so that they can just give the arguments that they want to match. If not, if there's nothing else that could possibly be of interest, then maybe we'll just pass in the arguments now. So let's go look at this call info. The object upon which you made the call. So this is like the this argument within the method. And is that something we would want to use a predicate on? I don't think it possibly could be because we already set it up. We passed that into this async method controller. And so for any normal method of an object, this is going to be the value of this, or the value of object. Now, it is possible that someone could call, we could do, navigator.clipboard call and pass it some other this, and then that information would be captured in the call object, and we could use that in our predicate. It's not something I ever do. It's not something I think could possibly be good practice. Maybe. All right, let's move on. Args, that's exactly what we want. And return value. The return value we are going to specify ourselves in the test. We're going to flush it with the return value. So that can't possibly be interesting. It's always going to be, I guess, undefined by the time you're calling this match. So what shall we do? That's not true. We could call match, get back the test call object, call flush on that, and then call match again later. And then find the one that we flushed with whatever value. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's not any kind of pattern I've ever envisioned using, but it might be possible. And I'm going to make this flexible. And then we can, like I say, we can make a nice helper later for the common use case of just matching on the arguments. All right, let me put this back. So the call, so we want to return if the call dot args 0 was value 2. So now, we expect the length. Let's say if it's not equal to value 2. So now we're going to expect the length to be 2. And that gives me ideas. It returns matches in the order they were called. I believe that's a guarantee that Jasmine's spies give us, and so we can give that same courtesy. No, we should see if Angular has any such guarantee in their API, and if so, we can make the same guarantee in ours. If not, then we're just going to follow Angular's lead there. Search for requests that match given parameter without any expectations. Well, that doesn't tell us anything. Okay, we're not going to worry about that. We're not going to specify that in our API. We're not going to test for it. We don't care. So then we don't know what order these two are in. We shouldn't care what order these two are in. What I'd like to do is, in this test, prove that these are the two functions that got matched. The two calls that got matched, I should say. And so we could probably be pretty fancy about this. There's some sort of Jasmine dot array containing. This allows us to match an array with agnostic of the order inside that array, if I remember right. Let's go check the docs to make sure. Oops, not those docs apparently. Let's go check these docs. Array contain. Where do we find these in the docs? Let's use Google. Jasmine array containing. Older version. That's not what I want. That an array contains an object. Array with exact contents. That's what I actually want. Array with exact contents. Arrays to be equal ignoring order. That's what we want. Look, I've been here before. I uploaded this before. He's saying I want something like to equal ignore order, and the best answer, here's when I uploaded this as array with exact contents, starting in Jasmine 2.8. Perfect. Array with exact contents, and then we're going to want two things in there, which will be Jasmine dot they have all these matchers. Why don't I get any autocomplete on that? That's annoying. Oh, maybe I will. Jasmine dot, there we go. They have some function where you can say, I don't care about I don't know the full value of this object, but I do know that it has to have this one field matching what I want. So there's array with exact contents. That's what we found before. Object containing sounds like what I want. I don't know if that's going to be exactly, that's going to work for us, but let's give it a shot. Let's do an object containing, let's see, where the args, does it give us this deep matching ability where args 0 is value 1? And the other has, value 3. Actually, let me leave that as 2. I want to see this expectation fail with some message saying that the value was actually 3, because I'm not very confident in what I've written here. All right, let's see what the test gives us so far. Expected test call, blah 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 blah. Doesn't give us any specifics. So let's set a breakpoint there, and even, oops, oh, I don't get to click on my stack traces. Oh, maybe I need to, right. You have to run with the developer tools already open to get stack traces. Oh, but I already had the developer tools open. Annoying. Sometimes that works, I think. So this is going to be async method controller spec. I want to see what those matches are. We do have an array with 2 test calls, so it feels like we're maybe even kind of close. Oh, arg0, right, we had to call, that kind of, yeah, no, that worked, arg0, so this args0. Okay, let's just switch that to a 3. and see if I got lucky with my trying to remember how to maybe do this. I'm guessing not. No. It's probably saying that, you know, args, is not exactly this thing. It does not equal this thing. Maybe I would need to do something like, oh gosh, Jasmine dot, but I don't want to get into all that. Instead, let's do some manipulation on our matches here. Expect, oh wait, match is 0. Okay, hold on. Don't jump to conclusions when you find another problem like that. Yeah, still a problem. Let's try matches, and let's map that ourselves instead of trying to be all fancy with Jasmine matchers. So let's map that to this guy. And then this is going to be much simpler. What's your deal? Ah, okay. Match. Oh. Aha. Okay. I'm already needing some more interesting stuff here. So here we're returning an array of test call objects. And now we're going to need access to this call. So let's go ahead and make that. What? You're not going to let me add the argument automatically? Fine. I'm going to make a constructor, and then we're going to make a public call, which is a Jasmine dot call info. Maybe I should be calling this call info instead of call. Yeah, in fact, I like that, because then this is a call and this is the call info. Sure. That's going to be a call info. And put another to do there. Great. Save. How are we doing? Lovely. Red, green. Loving it. Now, really the problem was the test went from red to green. Let's now make sure that if we, I don't know, let's test the test by doing something that we know should make it fail. Length to be 2 we don't need anymore because we have array with exact contents. Yeah. Maybe by doing pass in, like the same call 2 different times or something. So we could do like this dot spy dot calls 0. Dot first. Yeah, that's a thing. Okay. Now we should see this turn red, and that will prove that our test is actually doing what we need it to do. Lovely. Expected value 1, value 1 to be value 1, value 3. Beautiful. And we are getting close. And I will wrap the video once we get these tests finished. I think That's going to be almost the end though, because the typing here is maybe all that's left. You could watch me struggle with typing if that interests you. Actually, that's something I getting into advanced typing takes or advanced, that's probably the wrong word. Really, I don't know, sophisticated, like make the typing do exactly what you want it to in this sort of library setting has proven really mind-boggling to me at times. So I will see how that goes, and you may or may not see that in this video. I might chop it off before I upload. Um, Great. What's left? We have this test here that's still pending. Ooh, phone call. It does not remove the matching calls from future matching. Right, I remember that. So let's do something similar to this. We'll make just maybe a couple of them. Maybe like this, and we'll do a couple of them. We don't need all those values. In general, I like my tests to have as little information as necessary to express well the intention of the test. Um, and so having to specify value 1, value 2 was not going to be helpful for just showing that it doesn't remove the values from the matching. We don't care what the values in the arguments of the call were. We just care that a match doesn't get removed. And so let's go ahead and just make 2 calls. That should be plenty to verify what we want. Let's go ahead and just have the predicate match both of them. And let's just make sure that the length is 2. And here we're going to get into, let me just inline this. We're going to get into a little bit, this doesn't quite fit my normal simple format of a test where you can clearly separate the exercising the code from the expectation, because we have to exercise the code twice and show the expectation in between. Is that true? We could do it like this. There actually wasn't a need to do this expectation for the first time around. We've already shown in other tests that it returns the correct thing on the first call. This is just worried about the second call. So maybe we can. Let's go right back to where we were. Make this just do this twice. And then give this a better name to clearly express to future readers, myself mostly, maybe people on the internet if they go look at my open source library, maybe you if you come look at this library later. Maybe because you like this pattern so well that you want to use it in your tests. We're not actually using the pattern much yet, but we're going to in future videos. The real motivation for doing all of this, I have a which app was it? I have a few apps, and this was for the Sudoku app. I made a feature to turn on screen locking while the game is up. The Sudoku game is up. So on my phone, if I'm just staring at my Sudoku for, you know, multiple minutes, trying to think of what the next number could be, the screen doesn't turn off on me. And that uses an async API provided by the browser for wake lock, it's called. And I'm actually using that in 2 separate apps now, which means I want to centralize it into one of my libraries and use that in both apps. And then any other app that I or anyone else writes in the future can easily gain access to the screen locking functionality. And if I'm going to put it in a library, it's going to need tests. And then I was thinking, how do I want to write those tests? And this is an idea, having this sort of Angular HTTP testing controller pattern where you make all the calls and then expect them and flush them later so that you can test what's happening in between and everything like that. I've had that idea in the past, and I thought this is the time. It's finally time to write this, develop the idea, and then I can use it for this new feature. So whole live coding series coming up if I record all of it. Um, so right, all of that was going to say, I don't know how I got off on that tangent. Sorry. All of that was somehow started from renaming this because I want to clearly indicate to future readers that this is specifically trying to test, matches on second try or something to capture the intent of what's going on in this test. So you don't look at this and think, well, that's useless. But then you see this and say, oh, because we have to do it twice. This is the second try in particular. All right, so that should already be working for us because that's just built into, ooh, that is not working for us. Expected length 2 to be 0. Does not remove from future. Aha! Dot length to be 2. Because, just inspecting those Jasmine spies does not remove it from the Jasmine history. Great. So that gives us this match function. There's a lot more to go here. Gives you an idea of the kind of effort that goes into these small libraries. At least when I write them, I want to make sure they are rock solid, they're well tested, they have great typing. And so, yeah, this whole video, what did we really accomplish? That much actual production code with to-dos. How many lines of actual logic did we write? Let's see, maybe 1. If you count each one of these separately, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was all for 5 lines of code. But if you put the effort in, I have found it really. I like it. I like it in the end. I do think every time I do this, I think, wow, this takes a long time. This is a lot of effort. This isn't all that fun. But I know because I've been doing it, and I reap the benefits later when I can just have all these library things that I can just pull up and use. We use them. I use them on all my personal projects. We use them on my team at work. And all of software is like standing on the shoulders of giants, right? So it's like, I'm not writing the browser, I'm not writing the language, I'm not writing all these things. All these little pieces, if they're at real high quality, took a lot of time for every little part to build and be bulletproof and easy to use. And so I'm making my little contribution to the putting on some shoulder pads for the next guy. And I reap the benefits myself. As long as I keep using Angular for very much longer, I'm going to come back. I'm going to use this again anytime I have to. It's pretty common actually to have to use some browser async API in the kinds of projects I work on. Not every day, but I don't know, every multiple times a year. So from now on, I'll be able to have a better testing framework around any code that I write like that. I'm going to call it here. I may work on the typing and show it in some future video. Let me know if you want to see that. Let me know anything about this in the comments. What's helpful, what I should try and avoid. I noticed my last video I put little sometimes had some stuff down behind my video. I forgot to be aware of that this time. I'm learning here. Anyway, thanks for getting this far. Wish you the best in your Angular work, and I will see you in the next video.